Welcome back, fellow Illumineers, to be our guest. Did you not have 6 hours to check out all the review videos in our draft primer? Well, you're in luck, because we've got our quick hits video here for you to make sure that you feel prepared for your upcoming release weekends if you didn't have 8 hours to invest in the rest of the videos. I am here to run you through a quick summary of everything we've covered over the last 7 days, as well as just to go through and make sure that you're confident leading into these pre-release events. I want to go through a summary of our draft strategies and sealed strategies. I want to go through a quick recap of the hits and the traps that you should be avoiding. So all the kind of best cards at each ink cost, all of the cards that are most likely to trip you up at each ink cost. So if that sounds like a worthwhile expenditure of the next little while, make sure you stick around and check that out. Before going into that, though, feel free to skip ahead. I'll try and remember to put a timestamp, but you'll be able to identify it as I start moving through these slides. I want to make sure that I recognize a few people. I want to make sure, first of all, that I recognize my amazing guests. I'm so grateful for the time that you all invest in helping me, in helping our viewers, in giving another perspective, because I don't want to just be one person shouting into the void, right? Ultimately, I reiterate this, and for me, it bears repeating. You know me by now if you've been watching these videos. I like repeating things, which is to say, I don't want to be one voice. I don't want to say, this is the way. I don't want to say, trust me, bro. I want to say, this is one perspective, and in bringing on my guests, I can give you other perspectives. So please, if you love our guests, make sure you shout them out in the comments. Make sure that you show them love. Make sure you go out and subscribe to their channels, or follow them on Twitter or X or Facebook or Instagram or wherever else you may find them, because they are amazing individuals and have so much to contribute in their own right to this game and to our community. So thank you all to them. Let me also say thank you to you, the viewer, who have been watching, whether you watch from the first chapter, whether you're watching for the first time. The amount of love and support that I get in these comments, the amount of people sharing this out, it means so very much to me. There's a reason I have monetization turned off. I'm not looking to make this a job. I want to do this for you all, but I also want to do this because I love Limited so much. I love these formats. I love this game, but I know that Limited isn't as supported as other formats. I'm really the main voice for it right now, which is crazy to say. But my hope is that in all of you showing your love for Sealed or Pack Rush or Draft, which is my favorite, as we know, that you share it out, that you get others in your local community, your friends and family, and your play groups, those at your LGS, loving Limited, get them confident in it. I know it's nice to be the best one at the table, but the more confident we get everybody, the more that they're going to enjoy it, and the more hopefully we can spread this movement. We can get Ravensburger paying attention, being like, the people want Limited. The people are craving Limited. We need to give them more Limited events, higher stakes events, bigger events, and really grow this space. And I really see 2026 as the year. There's a reason why I've set a goal for really pushing this channel in 2026. It's not to pad my stats. Again, got monetization turned off. It's to keep spreading the word. So the more you share this out, the more you comment and engage, the more people will see this, and hopefully the more we can grow Lorcana Limited in 2026. So thank you all for your support, and thank you for helping in this movement. I am so eternally grateful for you, and every time I read a comment about how this helped you, how excited you are for these videos, it really moves me every single day. I'm so excited for this time of the set. Forget the rest of the set. Give me the 2 weeks before set release, and I am giddy. So thank you again, and I hope you all have an amazing pre-release weekend. All right, note to Heath, because Heath always forgets to do the things that Heath says he's going to do. This is where you put in the timestamp for getting everyone back that didn't want to stick around for all the thank yous. All right, let's dive into what we're talking about today, which is, again, a summary of everything we've talked about, but also hopefully just a way for you to quickly key in advance of your pre-release events. So without further ado, let's start with the first video that we did some or so days ago. So I'm not going to go over the grading system again, but I do want to go over a few key things that I think are important for you to remember leading into these pre-release events. So the first is the grade distribution. Now, this were based on my initial grade assessments, so not necessarily how the grades evolved with my guests, but even so, this isn't going to have changed drastically. Still, what I want you to take away is this is a C-heavy set, which is to say it's a set of kind of meh playables, right? Maybe more than meh, but I might be exaggerating slightly, but it is not a bomb-heavy set. So what you should, look or read into that is that A, you need to make sure that you're seeing the quality cards that you do have, those A and B cards, and how you need to build towards that, which is to say whether it's sealed or whether it's draft, those cards are really going to be what win you the game, but you're not going to see a lot of them. So how can the rest of your deck complement those cards, right? If your best cards are telling you to go aggressive, how can the rest of your cards complement that? If those key cards are telling you to be more controlling, how can the rest of your cards complement that, right? Each pool is going to be different, but you want to be keeping that in mind, right? How do I align with my A and B cards? The second thing that you want to take away from this being a C-heavy set is, especially for my sealed brethren out there, but also for my drafters, right? If you're opening packs that feel really weak, chances are everyone is, because the set is relatively weak on the whole. Now, I'm excited by that because it means you're not often going to lose to a random bomb. There's really no bomb in this set that really competes with even the top 5 cards of the last couple of sets. Those all had, their top 5 cards were better than the best card in this set. So you're not likely to lose to a random bomb, which means you've got a lot more room to win via consistency, to win via skill differential, to win via a strategy and a plan. I'm not much for synergies, but if you've got a really synergistic deck that works, again, good cards first, synergy second, then you can actually make that work a little bit more in this set. So I'm excited for that. So it's not to get you down, but it is to say don't get discouraged if you open a lot of seemingly weak packs. All right, what's the next thing that we can take away? How about what our ideal curve is? So I've got both our draft curve and I'm going to show the sealed curve here in a second, but effectively it amounts to the same thing, plus or minus a card at each, which is you want the majority of your deck to be at that 3 to 4 ink spot. You want very few 1-drops, very few late game cards, those 6+ ink cards, a decent amount of 2 and 5 drops, but the majority of your deck at 3 and 4. Now, since we've gone through these review videos, I will say that I'm almost seeing the 1-drop is like 0 to 3, which is to say if you have no 1-drops, that's okay. But I'm going to ask you to take that 1 to 3 and add it onto your 2-drops, not to the rest of your curve, which is to say if you have 0 1-drops or 1 2-drops, you need, or 0 1-drops or 1 1-drop, you need to make sure that you have a decent quantity of 2-drops because you cannot miss turn 2, 1 and 2. You can't have your first play be on turn 3. Especially on the draw, if your first play is on turn 3, you might have already lost the game. So feel free to go light on the 1-drops because they're pretty bad in this set, but make sure you have a decent amount of 2-drops if so. Don't just spread that around your curve. Nevertheless, even if you do, you go all the way up to 3 and you've got 9 2-drops. That's probably a little heavy, but even so, you want the majority of your deck to be at 3 and 4. Again, sealed, same idea, just kind of adding 1 to 2 through 5 there, 2 through 6, right? Sealed tends to be a little bit slower, so you can err on the side of having a little bit higher cost deck than you might in draft, but even so, you still want the height of your curve to be at 3 and 4. Okay, what else did we take away from the data in the set? Which is the highest density of quality cards are at 4 and 5 drop. 2, 3, and 6+ are all kind of weak. Now, to be fair, the 6+ is somewhat by my bias. I don't value 6+ cards nearly as much as 2 through 5 because they're really hard to get to. So some of you might have more high value 6+ cards to you, perfectly acceptable, but still 4 and 5 is where the highest density of quality cards are. What can we take away from that? Well, the main message there is if I've got a really good quality 2 and I'm choosing between that and a really good quality 5, chances are my 5 is more replaceable than my 2. This is especially relevant for draft, but even in sealed, if I'm looking to cut you know, a decent quality 2 versus 5. At this point, I'm probably cutting between a C and a C minus, right? If I've got a C minus 2 and a C5, chances are that 5 is more replaceable. But this is especially important for my drafters, because if I'm, even in pack 1, picking between the best 2-drop, Scrooge, and an equally powerful 5-drop kind of in a vacuum, I probably want to go with Scrooge, because I'm probably going to be able to find a quality 5-drop down the line where I won't find a quality 2 because there's so few of them. This stands out, especially once we highlight these colors here. You can see that that density is super high at 4 and 5. Inkability. This is a big one to pay attention to in this set. We've had the luxury of the last couple of sets being pretty low on uninkables. At this set, a quarter of the set is uninkable. Now, once you narrow that down to the quality cards, it goes down to about 16% or so, but even so, it's pretty high, and specifically at 4-drop. At 4-drop, there is a significant amount of quality uninkables. What should we take away from that? The big thing to take away from that is that you're going to be tempted by a lot of good cards that are uninkable at 4. And really, I'm recommending that you don't have more than 3 to 5 uninkables, so on average 4 uninkables in draft, and 4 to 6, so on average 5 uninkables in sealed. This is your comfort zone. Yes, you could go above that, but then you got to start mulliganing more conservatively. You got to be a lot more careful. You cannot risk having 3 or 4 uninkables in your hand post-mulligan in limited. You will get in a really bad way. So if I know I'm going to be tempted in the 4-drop slot by really good uninkables, if I see a really good uninkable in 4, this is especially relevant in my draft for my drafters, and I see an inkable card at another card slot that's maybe slightly less powerful, you should probably take the inkable card, because you know there's lots of good quality 4-drops, and there's a lot of uninkables at 4, so I need to kind of try and steer away from those. Now, I'm not going to ask you to completely ignore those forecast uninkables. They're good, right? But you just got to be careful, because you can't put yourself in a situation where you end up after the end, you've got your pool ready to go, and you've got 8 quality uninkables, whereas maybe you could have had 6 quality uninkables, and the inkable cards aren't as strong as the 2 that you didn't take or that you cut, but they're strong enough that their inkability matters, right? All right, so this is just your summary here. Feel free to screenshot this or whatever the case may be. But these are kind of your tips and the things that you want to make sure that you factor in leading into your limited events, right? We've got the curve, the ideal level of inkability, and those pick rules. Again, this is for my drafters specifically. All right, let's take a look at those hits and traps again. Let's make sure that at every ink cost, as you build your ideal curve, we recognize what are the cards that you want to be looking for most, whether in your sealed pool or your draft, and what are the cards that might lead you down the wrong path, the traps to avoid. So let's start with the hits. Those are the most fun ones to talk about. And let's just start off the bat by saying 1-drops are not a hit. 1-drops as a whole, you should probably just avoid. There's a couple of ones that are like C, mid-C at best. We've got Stitch, we've got Cinna, but on the whole, you should probably just keep the 1-drops out of your deck. Again, which means that we need to take that many more 2-drops. Instead of 4 to 6, maybe we're taking 6 to 8 2-drops at that point, right? There is one 1-drop I'm going to give an honorable mention here, which is Hercules, Spectral Demigod. He's an inkable 0/3/1 lore with boost 2, and while there's a card under this character, he gets +3 strength. I gave him a very low C, high D when I was doing my review. I will say, after having some discussion and some feedback from you all, don't think I disregard it, I would probably rate him as my highest 1-drop, but that's not saying much. So why is he my highest 1-drop? Why did I, maybe give him a hard rap? From turn 2 and beyond, he is bad. He is D level, which is to say, if I have to pay effectively 3, even on layaway, everyone knows my favorite saying about boost, we're paying on layaway. Even though I'm paying on layaway, I'm still paying 3 for a 3/3 with 1 lore. That is a terrible vanilla body. Even back in the day, we would pay 3 for a 3/3 2 lore body, right? So not great. However, specifically on turn 1, because we don't want to play any other 1-drops, we can effectively count him as costing 0 on turn 1, and then our boost on turn 2. If we can pull that off, right, because we're not playing anything else on turn 1 for the most part, Then all of a sudden we've got a body that's questing and or challenging on turn 2 for 3. That's great. And we've got potential boost synergies. That's perfect. But as soon as it's turn 2, I don't want to be dropping this on turn 2. I want to be dropping a proper 2-drop. And from then on afterwards, it's just bad unless you have really great boost synergies, right? So he's one that, you know, if I can get him out specifically on turn 1, all of a sudden I'm actually really excited about Hercules. So he's really, really good. Let's say maybe 20% of the time, which puts him above a D. Again, D is like 5 to 10% of the time is good. So really, really good, maybe 20% of the time. We don't hard mulligan for him, but, you know, maybe we'll search for him a little bit. You know, we'll mull a few mediocre cards away to try and find him. So we're looking at maybe 10 cards to try and find him. That means even in seal, we've got a 25% chance of finding him. Great. At that point, he's fantastic, but otherwise he is bad. So that doesn't mean he's a C+ or anything. He's kind of a mid-C, but still, he is literally the only 1-drop that I'm really anxious to have in my deck, and even then, I'm not valuing him very highly. All right, let's go into the 2-drop spots. Let's start at the lowest one, which is Minnie Mouse Spinning Skater. Minnie Mouse is a 2-drop inkable 3/3 Lord Vanilla, right? Really straightforward. The reason I love Minnie Mouse is because, as opposed to Hercules, which afterwards, I have to pay 3 ink for a 3/3. She is always 2 ink for a 3/3. And that is such a great rate for my ink cost. Especially in this set. In the last set, we had 2 commons, inkable 3/3s. In this set, we really just have her and our uninkable Scrooge, which we'll talk about in a minute. So she is standing above rate against pretty much every other 2-drop. So love that, and she even competes fine into a decent amount of 3-drops as well. Grandmother Willow. Quite frankly, this isn't a card that I anticipated liking when I first looked at this set for Limited. You know, I hate Lantern. I hate Friends on... Or, not Friends on the Other Side. I love Friends on the Other Side. One Jump Ahead. I hate cards that are not characters that all they do is ramp us. Because they speed up our deck a little bit, but at the cost of a card. Grandmother Willow, I was thinking, okay, I get a body for it, but it's a really vulnerable body, so I'm likely to lose that ramp. Whereas, because there's so little removal in this set, Grandmother Willow effectively acts like a Lantern until I want her to be a character. Which is to say, eventually, I don't need the ramp anymore, I can quest for 1 and lose her, and it's fine, distract my opponent's character for a turn to challenge her. Or 2, if I get Wisdom of the Willows and I want to quest with her and draw a card, even better. So she is absolutely a massive step above Lantern and 1 jump ahead in a set with very little removal. There is Terror That Flaps in the Night that can remove her, but at that point I'm trading 1 for 1. It's not the end of the world. She is uninkable, but she's a low-cost uninkable. The lower the cost of the uninkable, the less risk, right? The risk of a 6-drop uninkable is it's going to be stuck in your hand forever. You're going to be forced to ink other things you didn't want to ink. Whereas with a 2-cost, I can get it out early and kind of free up the rest of my curve. So Grandmother Willow, definitely one to pay attention to, and one that I'm rating in the B territory. Scrooge McDuck, I originally had this at B+, but I was convinced and by Liam and definitely felt so afterwards that this is in the A territory. This is an exceptional 2-drop. Why? Because it is at the best rate at 2. 2 cost for a 3/3 is the best body you can get at 2 cost. It's also the best body you can get at 3 cost. As soon as you boost him, you've paid 3 for a 4 for it. That's the best vanilla stat line that you can get at 3. Guess what? He's also the best vanilla stat line that you can get at 4. By the time you pay 4ing for him, you've paid 4 for a 5/5. And again, you've paid it on layaway, so you can pay it sequentially over turns. Even without any boost synergies, he is exceptional. There's potential for over time, especially once we get to turn 6 and onwards, where we'll have spare ink, where you could just grow him. So you play him early, challenge him into something that he survives, then hold him back until you can grow him enough to run him into something else that you want to challenge into. If you have boost synergies with him, he starts being just absolutely ridiculous. Because boost 1 with any sort of boost synergies, whether it's the Donald Duck Legendary, whether it is any bounce characters that we have, we've got a couple of options in the set, especially those witches, the Amethyst uninkable rare. So much value that you can get out of it. So I love Scrooge. He is absolutely far and away the best 2-drop. by a country mile. So this is the one where you'd want to value him over maybe, say, a good 4-drop. They think they're both good cards, yeah, but I can replace my good 4-drop a lot easier than I can replace Scrooge. All right, getting into our 3-drops. I have highlighted Minnie Mouse. Normally, I wouldn't highlight a card this week, which is to say, for me, this is like a mid-C, maybe low C+. It is an uninkable 3-cost, 2/4, 2-lore support. Fine. Why am I highlighting this? Because this is the best common at 3-drop. Let me say that again. This is the best common at 3-drop. Again, if you remember from a few minutes ago, there was very few quality 3-drops. So same as 2, you're going to be hard put to it to find some quality 3-drops. This is the best common, we're going to be in a rough way. So you need to factor that in as you're drafting especially, but even building your sealed pool to think, you know, what do my 3s look like? Look at my 2s and 3s because you might be hard put to it to build that out. But especially for my drafters, pay attention to your 3-drop slot because most of the quality cards are rare and above, which means you're not likely to see them. Chief Season Tracker. We love card draw unlimited, and this is one that's pretty easy to get the card draw on and has a really high willpower to potentially be able to exert more than once. So he's an inkable 2/5/1 lore with the ability to exert. If an opposing character was banished in a challenge this turn, draw a card. So there is a setup cost. It's not just exert, draw a card, but it's about the easiest setup cost you're going to get in limited, which is to say you're challenging in most turns. Presumably to banish your opponent's characters. So if you're doing so, you're going to get card draw. And if you're banishing their characters, that's less characters that can come back and challenge Chief in turn, and you can accrue value. If you can exert him to draw a card more than once, chances are you're going to win that game. Vixie, Forest Friend. Vixie makes me want to break my rules about the 1-drops. She is an inkable 3-cost, 1/3, 2-lore evasive. If that was it, she'd already be great. And she is one of the best commons and uncommons in the set. In fact, I have her as the highest common or uncommon, but there's literally only 3. However, if you've got a character named Todd in play, you pay 1 less to play her. There is only 1 Todd that is common and only 1 Todd that is under this ink cost, which is the 1-cost inkable 2/2 vanilla. You should not play that card. It is very bad. But the potential to go Todd into turn 2 Vixie has me really tempted. So I'm not going to blame you if you try to make it work. Just remember, statistically, you are very unlikely to have that combination. But it is going to feel so sweet if you could get Vixie out on 2, so I'm not going to blame you for chasing it. Just remember, it's not likely to happen. Feel free to share on Twitter/X if you make that happen. Take a picture of it, because I will be so happy for you. Getting into 4-drops. So especially in a slower set, chances are 4 is going to be the top of my curve. It should be 3 or 4. There's a lot more density of 3s, so probably just by way of volume you'll have more 3s, but I'm not going to blame you for chasing more 4s because there's so many great ones, right? So what are some ones to start? Well, let's start with Chief Powhatan because my friends at Rules of Villainy that were my guests on the 4-drop slot, most of them disagreed with me on this, but hey, this is my time, so I'm going to tell you to play Chief Powhatan, which is he's an inkable 5/5/1 lore bodyguard with the ability that he can't challenge, or the downside that he can't challenge. Now I'm going to tell you, when you've got a 5/5 bodyguard, you don't really care about challenging, which is to say, of course you care about challenging, but it's like, he's so good on rate, so good, that am I really going to complain that he can't challenge? Right? He is a giant brick wall at 4. Now, because we're not playing 1-drops, we're really probably only going to have a 2 and 3-drop if we play him on curve. But he's one that we could easily play a 4 and a 2 on 6. Or, you know, if we get to the point where we've got enough value in card draw, you know, 4 and a 3 on 7, probably not. You know I don't like inking to 7. But if you get enough card draw and value before this, maybe. But chances are I'm going to drop him on 4. Why is that? Because if I'm questing, I'm going to want a giant body in front of my questers. Perfect. If I'm challenging, especially like presumably I have Chief Powhatan in my opening hand, I'm planning towards dropping him on 4. Then I'm going to make sure that if I'm behind, like especially if I'm on the draw, that I'm not playing questers turn 2 and 3. I'm playing challenging characters. Oh, Scrooge? Ideally. But, you know, Minnie Mouse or some type of challenging character. The Negaduck, that's a 4/2 for 2, right? I'm going to be playing challenging characters turn 2 and turn 3 so that I can drop Chief Bowathon turn 4, challenge with my 2s and 3s, hopefully at least one of them survives so the bodyguard becomes relevant, and then go on from there, right? Even dropping him on 5 probably isn't terrible. He's such great value. If I paid 5 for a 5/5 One Lord bodyguard that could challenge, I would probably do that. We've got a 6/5 bodyguard, which is even better, but like he's so good on rate. He is absolutely stacking up against any other 4-drop. There's, I think, 1 4-drop that can challenge into him, maybe 2. But he is just exceptional rate. So I made the analogy that on the 4-drop video that he effectively gives the rest of your characters evasive. He's such a big body on 4 that he effectively gives the rest of your characters evasive plus because they just can't be touched, whether they're challengers or whether they're questers. All right, marching off to battle. A really bad Friends on the Other Side, but this is how desperate we are these days for Friends to come back. We'll take it. Which is to say, it is a 4-cost inkable song. If a character was banished this turn, draw 2 cards. So it's 1 more ink than Friends on the Other Side, and it requires the hoop of banishing a character. Now we've got Colors of the Wind as well, which is similar to this in that you're probably drawing 2 cards for 4, but it's a super rare. This is a common. So I apologize I didn't mention this beforehand. I try to just highlight commons and uncommons, maybe rares on the fringe scenario. But in this video specifically, I try to highlight commons and uncommons because that's what you're going to see most of. At least 9 out of 12, so 75% of the pack at least is going to be commons and uncommons. A good chunk of the foils as well. So between 9 or 10 of your 12 cards are going to be commons and uncommons. So the majority of what you're seeing is that. So that's why I try to highlight those. So if anyone's wondering why I'm not highlighting Colors of the Wind, because it's slightly better than Marching Off to Battle, that's why. So let's talk about this one again. As I mentioned with Chief, banishing a character in Limited is a very, very common thing to do. So that's not really going to be a huge hoop to jump through. It is a setup cost. It's not just draw 2 cards, but it's one of the easier setup costs to meet. And yes, it is 1 more ink, or I need a slightly bigger body to sing it. But again, these days we're that desperate for, a Friends on the Other Side replacement that is absolutely worth it. It is still kind of mid to low B, but it is absolutely worth playing and picking up. Let's go with Slushy next because he's really straightforward. He is an uninkable 5/5 One Lore evasive. Talk about a massive body at evasive. Now I still think our 6-drop Lumpy that we're going to see in a second is better because, as I've mentioned before, I would rather be the threat than have the answer to the threat. But Slushy's kind of both, which is to say questing for 1 at evasive is not nothing. I would rather be questing for 2, obviously. But questing for 1 is not nothing. The great thing about Slushy is he can take out a pretty substantial body, survive to tell the tale, and then start questing for 1. Right? And if another evasive takes him out at that point and I get 2 for 1 after questing a couple times, that is like, ideal. That's fantastic. What more could you ask for a 4-drop? Yes, it is uninkable, and I mentioned you're going to be tempted by a lot of uninkables at 4-drop, but if you're going to be tempted by one, make it Slushy. All right, and last, of course we love our card draw, Alice Well-Read Whisper. Again, Bambi is very similar to this, but it is a super rare. Alice is an uncommon. So she is an inkable 4/4 One Lore with boost 2, and whenever this character quests, put all cards from under her into your hand. You get to draw every boost card that you put under her. Ignoring the boost synergies and other cards that are going to put cards under her, just boosting is amazing. Now, as we established on the 4-drop video, I really am starting to feel like this is more of a 6-drop than a 4-drop, which is to say, on 4, on curve, you're not really going to want a booster on 5. Again, we've established 3-drops are really weak. So paying 2 to boost this and then playing a 3-drop is not nearly going to be as impactful as some of the quality 5-drops that are out there. So really what you probably want to do is play her on 6, boost her right away, the following turn boost her again, quest for 1, draw 2 cards, be very, very happy. If you ever happen to manage to do it again, great, but chances are this is going to be a banish on sight for your opponent. So don't expect to exert her more than once. Get your 2 cards and be very happy for it. All right, moving on. Into the 5-drops. What do we got? Let's start with Terran. He's the weakest of the 3. He is Terran Magically Armed, uninkable 5/5 One Lore with Rush, and a really insignificant ability of putting 2 cards from chosen player's discard on the bottom of their deck in any order. There are cards that I actively want you to play, namely Chernobog at 5, that this benefits, but it is a relatively useless ability. You know, use it if there's weak cards in your opponent's discard that you want to put on the bottom in case they shuffle for some reason, or if there's really powerful ones that you want to put on the bottom because you think they might get it back. Remember, Tweed, I can't remember what her name is. Mrs. Tweed, that's not her name, is in this set that can take a card back from the discard, a character back from the discard. So by all means, use the ability. It's not likely to be a problem, but don't just expect it to do much. That being said, 5 cost for 5/5 rush is really good rate. We have almost no removal in the set. It's really hard to come by. Rush isn't great removal, but it's decent removal, and especially on a 5/5 body, what you want to be doing is rushing this into a 4 strength character so it survives, and then let the chips fall as they may. Your opponent runs back a 1-drop or a 2-drop into this. Probably not a 1 since they're so bad, but if they are playing 1s, you're thrilled. A 1 or 2 drop back into this, you've still gotten a 2 for 1, you're happy. Card economy is huge and limited. I mentioned it's a war of attrition. You run out of cards. So the more that you can force your opponent to run out of cards quickly before you do, the better off you will be. This is how you break board stalls as well, is you just get a card advantage off your opponent. Goofy, Marley's Clumsy Spirit, Inkable, 5/5, 2 lore. When you play this character, you may ready chosen character. If you do, they can't quest for the rest of your turn, rest of this turn. The vanilla stat line is 6/5 or 5/6, 2 lore. We're losing 1 point of strength or willpower to get that ability. At common, this is exceptional. We've developed a threat on our board, which is great. Then we've done 1 or 2 things. We've rescued a quester that might otherwise have been challenged and removed, or if we've allowed a big body to potentially challenge, banish something small, ready again, banish something else, right? Challenge something else. Or just stand it up because, again, they've got that 1-drop on the other end of the field that you don't want them running into your big body. Whatever the case may be, whether we're protecting something or whether we're using it to challenge twice with something else that's dry, either way, we're getting huge value out of that ability, and coupling with a 5/5 2-lore body for 5 on top of that is exceptional. I alluded to this one before. I love bodyguards. I like big-bodied bodyguards, the triple Bs. This is an Inkable 6/5 1-lore bodyguard. I mentioned how I'd be fine to pay 5 for a 5/5 bodyguard. Well, guess what? I'm that much more excited to get a 6/5 for the cost. I would rather a 5/6. I usually want my bodyguards to have more willpower than strength, especially once they've got a decent amount of strength to begin with, but I'm not about to complain. This is a really efficient bodyguard, which is going to protect your questers, going to protect your other challengers. It's just going to be a big pain for your opponent to get through. So, love McHorn. Last but not least, let's get into our big cards, our late game cards. We've got Mickey Mouse, Tiny Tim's Father, Inkable 6/7 2 lore, Vanilla for 6. Paying 6 cost for a 6/7 2 lore is now on rate, but it's just such a big body while being a threat. Anything 2 lore and above is a threat, right? And you've got a big body into it. Chances are your opponent's going to have to run 2 characters into this, to lose 2 characters into this to get it off the board. Paying 6 for 2 lore and 2 characters is great value. So you can't really be sad about this. It's still kind of in that C+ territory. It's not crazy good, but it is about as good as you're going to get for a high cost vanilla. Copper on the Scent, 6 cost Inkable 8/5 Rush and Reckless. No lore, obviously, because it's a Reckless character. Again, I would love this so much more. It was a 5/8 or a 6/7, but you can't really complain. Again, we need Rush. We need some form of removal so our opponents can't quest again before we're ready to deal with their characters. But again, your best use for this is running into something that is 4 strength, and then surviving to tell the tale and getting that 2 for 1 back. It's going to be harder at 6. Saying that I want to run into something 4 strength or less with my 6 willpower isn't great. But the fact that this is inkable, if you haven't got a situation where you can benefit from that, you can always ink it, get out something different like a Tiny Tim's Father or something like that. But still, the fact that you can rush on a decent body is going to be worth it in a set that's so low on removal. And last but not least, my argument for the best card in the set is just such a big threat. There's some really good card value cards in the set, which you could always argue are going to be better. But for me, I like to play a tempo game, so I want the card value. I want the Petes of the world. I want the Bambis and Alices of this world, but they're still slow, right? They're amazing value. If you can stabilize and get the value out of them, you're absolutely going to win. But they're slow. So if I can out-tempo my opponent, great. And the top element of my curve being a 6-cost inkable 6/5 2-lore evasive. So I said it in the review, there's only 2 cards in the set that can deal with this. There is 3. There's Amos, there's Slushy, and there's Let It Go. But one of them's a rare. So really only 2 cards. Your opponents are going to be fighting for those 2 cards. You're not going to see them that often. You're going to want to assume that each of your opponents has at least one way to deal with this. But one in a deck of 35 to 40 cards, great. I said it on the recording for our late game cards. I normally only want like a handful of 6+ cards in my deck. I would take all of these that I could get. It is so good. Now compare this to our top cards in Whispers and in Fabled. This doesn't come close. Like I said, this probably wouldn't crack the top 5 in some other sets, but it's still insane in this set. And no matter what set, it would still be excellent. So this is the last card that you want to be looking at for your hits. Let's go into those traps and find out some of the things that you need to avoid. The first 2 are pretty much the same card, which is Miko. He is an uninkable 1/1 2-lore evasive. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, choose and discard a card or banish him. And Gantu, inkable 1-cost 3/3 1-lore. When you play this character, choose and discard a card. As I mentioned how important card advantage is, how quickly you run out of cards in Limited. If you're playing 1-drops that make you discard cards, if you're playing almost any card that make you discard cards, that is going to actively lose you the game. Especially a card like Miko, which is asking for a discard every turn. But I'm sorry, basically I'm saving 1 ink off Minnie Mouse at the cost of an additional card. I don't care if I can get this out 1 turn earlier. I'm questing 1 turn for 1 more lore. Awful. Absolutely awful. I've seen people rate this in Limited. Stay far away from it. Those are absolutely traps. Into the 2-drops. Pudge is really representative of this concept as a whole, which is there are plenty of cards that are really good in Constructed that are not good in Limited. I thought Grandmother Willow might be one of these. I gave you my reasons why it's not. Pudge is absolutely one of these. 1, there's not really any good Lilos to play in this set. 2, even if you have the 1-drop Lilo out, which you shouldn't because it's terrible, and you get this out for free, it is a 1/3 1-lore. As soon as Minnie Mouse or Scrooge come out, this is absolutely trumped. I wouldn't want to pay 1 ink for this. I don't really care that much about paying 0 ink for this. Mother's Necklace. This is a very specific card. So Mother's Necklace is an uninkable item. At the end of your turn, if none of your characters challenge this turn, chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Feels really nice. I can effectively give my characters evasive every turn. 2 problems with that. 1, it's uninkable in a set with a lot of good uninkables. 2 is it's not actively influencing the board. Well, there's actually 3. And the third is it's forcing me not to challenge. As I said, there's plenty of times, whether you're the quester and in the lead, or whether you're not, whether you're chasing your opponent's lead, that you want to be challenging. And to force yourself to not challenge to get this ability is really bad. Giving evasive for a turn, protecting your character is nice, but proactively, I'd want to be able to give my character evasive on my turn so that I could challenge something with evasive. But this doesn't want you to challenge. It just wants you to quest. So it is limiting you so much for all of those reasons, and so it is very much a trap. Last is just kind of generally these underdog cards. So I'm using Judy Hopps as the representative here because she's the worst of them. There is the White Rabbit, which is solid. The others I don't really rate at all. Some of my guests rated them a little bit higher, so they made it on the lists. But really, you can't rely on this getting out on 1. It has to come out on turn 1, otherwise it's 2 for the rest of the game. If this card said if you were on the draw, you could play it for 1 at any point, I might consider them a little bit more worthwhile. But even getting them out on 1, you're not getting a huge advantage. Christopher Robin is probably the second best. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a 2-lore quester out on turn 1, but just it's not likely to make a big enough difference to value that ability very highly. I'm not saying you shouldn't value them at all. I'm just saying don't count on that ability. Assume they're going to be 2-cost, and if you can get them out for 1, great, but value them like a 2-cost. All right, into our 3-drops. There's a few different ones here. First of all, let's just get it out of the way. Locations are terrible and limited. This one and the Vine one, I can't even remember its name, are fine. They're like D+ to maybe C-. If you've got a lot of evasives, you're very lucky. You're probably already winning the game. Then I might put this in my deck, but you need a lot of evasives. A 3-cost 4 willpower location is not likely to survive very long. Some people in my comments were equating locations to characters. You can equate them to characters that come into play exerted and are always exerted, which is to say this will get removed more often than not before you ever gain the lore the first time, right? Bodyguards don't protect it. There's just no real way to keep it. They're too vulnerable. For limited, it is a format where there's a lot of characters flying around, so just don't value locations in limited. Then 2 very specific cards. First, you want to build a snowman. This one is just bad. Your opponent's almost always going to choose no because they're probably almost always going to have a relatively disposable character. I'm putting a 3-cost uninkable in my deck. Yes, it is a song, but even so, I'm putting an uninkable card in my deck that's probably removing my opponent's 2-drop. Even if this is removing a 3-drop, that's not great value. You can probably dream up situations where this will be great, and you will be correct. There will be situations where this will be great. But for all the times that it's great, there's probably another 10 times where it's terrible, and for that, having uninkable in my deck is just not worth it. Next is Snowfort. I said a very specific card. I will say items in general, especially uninkable items. There is almost no items in any set ever that I want you to play in limited, and especially uninkable items. There are items. If you go back, you will find where I was recommending items, but it is so infrequent that if you're not comfortable evaluating cards, you should probably just assume that an item is terrible. Snowfort, I had someone call out in my comments saying, hey, I like Snowfort. Strength buffs, especially one strength buff in limited, is not hugely impactful. It is impactful. I'm not saying it's not impactful at all. It's just not hugely impactful. And to spend a card on that ability, especially an uninkable 3-drop, right? It's not just a matter of paying the ink for it. I am investing a card in this, a card that does nothing other than boost my character's strength by 1. Again, in that race to not run out of cards, right? In that, battle of oh, goodness, my brain's hiccuping. In that battle of attrition, hopefully I edit that, but let's be honest, I probably won't at this point. My brain's fried. You are going to run out of cards quickly. If you're dedicating one of those precious, precious cards to Snowfort, you are going to lose. Not definitely, but probably. Into the 4-drops. There's a few ones. Again, a couple of very specific cards. Willie the Giant. You're paying 4 for a 7/7 2-lore. Amazing. The boost 3 is such an investment, especially on curve, that every time you want to use this, you got to invest 3. That is just awful. Yes, you can envision ways where this is going to work and be helpful for you, but it's just not enough. He's inkable, so I wouldn't blame you for having him as your 40th card in your sealed deck, but try not to play him. Tigger, bouncing all the way, is an inkable 4/3/1 lore. When you play this character, return chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. We didn't mention this in the video, that you can return your own characters with this, so I had people in the comments saying, hey, I can return my boost characters with this and gain a lot of value, specifically Hercules and Scrooge, and there might be a couple others. But I can't stress this enough. I've said it before. What is the likelihood of doing that on curve? Right? Is Hercules surviving until turn 4, first of all? Scrooge almost certainly is, but maybe not. But even so, if I've got 1 Scrooge in my deck, and I've got 1 Hercules in my deck, and I've got 1 Tigger in my deck, what's the likelihood of having all of that line up? Not very high. So I would have to have, 4 or 5 Hercules and Scrooges combined. Maybe there's other boost cards I can't remember. But again, if they're not good on their own, don't play them. So those are the 2 good ones that I remember, or at least playable. I'm wasting a slot on this. If I end up playing this for a 4/3 vanilla, effectively, even if I'm bouncing my opponent's 2-drop, they might thank me for it if it gives them extra ink, right? If I'm playing a 4/3 vanilla on 4 in a set with so many great vanillas, my opponent drops something exceptional, how bad am I going to feel? Just don't play him. Again, if he's your 40th card because he's inkable, I'm not going to begrudge you too much, but he's just not good. Let's talk about one that will actively lose you the game. Let's get dangerous. Inkable, action song. Each player shuffles their deck, reveals the top card. If it's a character, they play them for free. You're giving your opponent a bite at the apple of dropping a bomb on you for free? even if you both drop characters, the average value character in each deck is going to be around a C. So we each get a C character. I've expended a card to do that. My opponent has not. They are up a card on me and we both just got average characters. But heaven forbid they high roll and get a great character on the board and you get a 2-drop. This card will lose you the game. This is the gambler's delight. Please don't gamble. Play responsibly. Know your limit. Play within it. Alright, into the 5-drops. Fangmire, Icy Officer, Uninkable, 4/4, 2 lore for 5. When you play this character, you may return a detective from your discard to your hand. There are very, very, very few playable detectives in this set. If this was in the last set, it might warrant playing. We are not. We are in a set with very few playable detectives. It is not worth playing. Grab Your Sword is an uninkable action song for 5. Banish up to 2 chosen characters with 2 strength or less. Yes, of course, if you get Todd, the 4-drop evasive with this, you feel really good. But there's so few 2 strength characters. There are big bodies in Limited. You're not hitting anything of substance. Chances are you're only hitting one thing, if anything at all. That is a distinct waste of a card. Into the 6-drops. We've got 2 of them here, and they're really the same. I've just included both just to show you that both count as the same. Whether it's Pumbaa or Mickey Mouse, we've got 2 6-cost uninkable characters that make your opponent discard a card. I know there are discard lovers in Limited out there. I see you. The problem is, one, I don't like discard much at all, because I feel like the difference in effect between discarding a card and discarding their last card is substantial. If you're discarding their last card on turn 5 or 6, you feel really, really good. It's probably a really meaningful character. However, if you discard one card and they've got even 2 cards left, chances are one of those was card they were planning on inking on the next turn. If they draw any other inkable and get out their big character, you haven't really affected them much. But especially the card that is 6 cost, your opponent might have run out of cards by this point. Especially if you're on the draw and they're on the play. The fact that it is an uninkable card in a set where we've got a lot of tempting uninkable cards, and it's going to, even if you're low on an inkable count, it's going to rot in your hand until turn 6, forcing you to ink other cards you might have otherwise not wanted to ink. You're just setting yourself up for failure. I know some of you are going to play this, and I know some of you are going to get value from it. I'm not saying it will never get value. I'm just saying that on the whole, this is going to be a significantly bigger trap than it is going to help you, and you're going to lose much more games than you win by having this in your deck. Last but not least, into the 7-drops, Li Shang, Valiant Leader. There's quite a few inkable 7-cost, big body kind of vanillas. This is the least of them, and this is a trap for 2 reasons. One, a 7-cost that has 5 willpower is just asking for pain. We've got 3-cost inkable characters that can take this out. 5 3s for 3. 2, Shift is a trap. There is a 3-cost common or uncommon Li Shang that we could shift this into. But that card is good in its own right. And 2, as soon as I shift, I've put myself down a card. So even if I get a 2 for 1 out of this, it's really just a 2 for 2 because my opponent lost 2 characters and I lost my Li Shang that I shifted onto and this. So really, you're just asking, again, to put yourself down both in ink, in tempo, in cards, by shifting onto this. It is a trap for the shift, and is a trap for the 5 willpower on a 7-cost card. That's it. That's everything. I hope you took enough away from this to feel confident, feel prepared. If you're feeling prepared, if you're ready to win your release event, Limited events, shout out in the comments down below. Let me hear it. If you've already played in a Limited event and you want to come back and tell me how you enjoyed the event, whether you won the event, because I think those two can be both goals. You can win and have fun. You can win and you can have fun. All of those are great situations, right? Hopefully never just winning and not having fun. That would be bad. But whether you're just having fun, whether you're having fun and winning, whatever the case may be, feel free to shout it out in the comments below because I want to hear all your stories. I love the stories. Give me more stories. That's it for this set. I'm going back into hibernation, except I'm not. I've got one more video, but it's not for your education. It's to announce that I'm doing a rebrand. We are no longer going to be Our Guest Lorcana. We are changing the brand. So if you want to find out what I'm rebranding to, watch for that video at some point in the future. Whether it's pre-release, whether it's post-release, I don't know. I'm really tired right now. I've recorded a lot of videos over the last week, so I don't know if I'm going to do it tomorrow or not. But whenever I do, feel free to watch out for those. I'm just kind of putting it out there so that it's out there. If you don't want to watch it, don't worry about it. Thank you all again so much. I love you, genuinely. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you next set. Have a great time. Keep enjoying Limited, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.